Now we're going to talk about buoyancy compensation device use. This is really important to know because new people who just learn how to dive often have a hard time with buoyancy control, and a lot of that has contributed to a lack of proficiency with their BCD. So it's very important to understand what all the different things do and how to use them on your buoyancy compensation device. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to inflate it using the power inflation button. That's going to move air from my tank and put it into my buoyancy compensation device to make me float. While I push this red inflator button, it's going to get tighter around my ribs and I'm going to become significantly more buoyant. I'm going to hold it down until one of the reliefs on my BCD is going to lift so that it doesn't break the BCD. It looks like this. You can see that my bottom relief lifted first, preventing it from damaging the bladder. You can also see I'm very, very buoyant now because all the air is inside my buoyancy compensation device. Now the slow way to get air out of the buoyancy compensation device is by using the deflate button on the low pressure inflator. I use that by putting that high in the air right next to my ear. We'll be using it in the water when it's in the water. But put it up next to your ear and push the deflate button. Note the rate at which it deflates. It takes quite some time to work all that air out of there. That's how I put air in and out using the low pressure inflator. I can also put air in to my BCD from my lungs by using the oral inflation method on the low pressure inflator. The way I do that is I'm going to press the deflate button. I'll say that again. I'll press the deflate button and I'm going to blow in to the exhaust vent. And when I'm done blowing, I'm going to release the exhaust button. If I don't release the exhaust button, all the air that I just pushed in is going to come right back out. It looks like this. There you go. It took me 3 breaths to inflate my BCD to a point where I couldn't put any more air into it. Remember, press, blow, release. To let air out of my buoyancy compensation device a little bit more quickly, I can use the vents as a dump. I have 3 vents on my buoyancy compensation device. 2 on the top, those are my right and left shoulder dumps, and then 1 on the bottom, which is my back dump. The way that I use my right shoulder dump is by finding this little handle that's connected to a string, and I'm going to pull this. I want you to notice how fast it lets all the air out. It's also a little louder. Okay, it took significantly less time to vent my air out of my BCD all the way. If I want to actually do my left shoulder dump, I'm going to take the tube of my low pressure inflator assembly, I'm going to pull it. It's just like the right shoulder dump, but instead of the string being out, the string's inside this tube here, so it actuates the dump that way. If I'm on the surface and I want to vent my BCD to start my descent, I want to do it in a rapid fashion, I'm going to let all the air out of my lungs and exhale fully, and I'm going to take both of these dumps and pull them at the same time, and that's going to evacuate all the air from my BCD very quickly. If I find myself in a position that I'm a little bit more upside down and I'm trying to kick toward the bottom, this is no longer the high point on my buoyancy compensation device. The high point is going to be back here. So all the air that is in my buoyancy compensation device is going to be there. So the way I do vent that is by locating my back or bottom dump, and I just give it a good pull, just like that. You can locate that by reaching down, feeling the bottom of the tank, and then reaching it up and pulling the string. So those are all the different controls of your buoyancy compensation device. If you learn how to use those, you'll be a lot further along than other divers who are not proficient with their buoyancy compensation device. Now I'm going to talk about the components of the mask. The first component I'm going to talk about are the lenses. This one has a single lens. There are some masks that have a double lens. If you want to get lenses that are prescription, because your vision may not be very good, you want to find a mask that has replaceable lenses, and you're going to find that with a double lens mask. The next mask component we're going to talk about is the frame. The frame adds a little bit of structure and it connects the skirt to the lens itself. Some masks don't have frames. Those are called frameless masks. You'll know those are frameless masks because there'll be no hard plastic frame around the lens, and the skirt will be wrapped around the lens physically. Right? The next part is the skirt. This is probably the most important part of the mask because it's going to be the component that allows for the mask to be comfortable and not leak. Right? The most important feature of a mask is that it doesn't leak and it is comfortable. If you have a mask that is not comfortable and it leaks, you're not going to enjoy your dive. Connecting the strap to the skirt are the buckles. This is where you adjust the tightness of the mask. The strap itself is there to hold the mask in place. It does not hold the mask on your face. It just holds it in place to prevent it from moving around and slipping off. It does need to be very tight. If it's too tight, you're going to have a ring around your face when you come up and it's going to be uncomfortable. But if it's too loose, it may leak a little bit. So what good rule of thumb is you put it on just loose enough that it's comfortable, go underwater, and if it leaks a little bit, just tighten it up. All right. Finally, the mask strap can have a neoprene cover installed on it. This is good to have if you have really long hair. It helps the mask go on and off without snagging your hair as easy. The next skill we're going to talk about is no mask breathing on the surface. This is your first skill that you'll do that uses compressed air. I do this on the surface because I want you to be able to pull your head up if you don't feel comfortable, so you don't breathe in any water. The purpose of this skill is to exercise a little bit of airway control while seeing what it's like to breathe compressed air underwater. What I mean by airway control is your ability to breathe in and out your mouth and not utilize your nose to breathe. Many new divers are used to breathing in and out their nose, and this is a hard thing to get by for them. So when your face is in the water, I want you to focus on breathing in and out of your mouth very slowly. If you have a sensation of water seeping up your nose, it's okay to breathe out your nose, but do not breathe in your nose because you'll get water to enter your airway. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to pick up our regulators, we're going to dump all the water out, we're going to put our regulators in our mouth. Then we're just going to put our face in the water and keep our ears out so you can hear me talk. I'm going to be giving you a cadence on how to breathe. Remember, breathing patterns are very slow and deep. You should do about 3 or 4 breaths in 1 minute. It's a very slow yoga style type of breathing. It looks like this. It's that simple. But remember, key points are to breathe nice and deep and slowly, make sure you're exhaling fully, and remember, do not breathe in your nose. Next, we're going to talk about how to secure your mask on the surface. This is really important because if you don't secure your mask properly on the surface, there's a good chance you're going to lose it. And you're going to be out about a $100 mask, and you might be done diving for the day if you don't have a spare. So the first way I like to do is like this. I put it backwards on my head. This makes it very unlikely that a wave that splashes me in the face is going to knock my mask off and lose it. It's also pretty comfortable. I can also wear it around my neck like this. Really unlikely that I'm going to lose my mask if it's like this, but this is uncomfortable for some people. You can also wear it around your arm like this. This feels less secure, but it's still a pretty good way to do it. You're not going to lose your mask very easy if it's strapped around your arm. What I don't want you to do is to hold your mask in your hands like this, because there's going to be one dive that you're going to do that's going to be so good that you're going to talk about how awesome it is, and all of a sudden it starts to sink, and then you're out a $100 mask because you didn't realize that it was sinking. Okay, it ends up on the bottom, and again, you're out of mask. Finally, I don't want you to put your mask on your forehead like this. You see this in the movies a lot and in pictures. This is a sign of a panic diver. The first thing I do if I'm a panic diver, instinctually, is to come to the surface, spit my regulator out, and then bring my mask up to here. Right? If I am a diving professional and I see this from a distance, I think you are panicking, and I'm going to come and provide you assistance. Stop what I'm doing and come help you. Right? Also, if a wave splashes you in the face like this, there's a very high likelihood that it's going to get knocked off your head, and again, it'll sink to the bottom of the ocean. So remember to keep your mask secured when you're on the surface using one of those 3 methods. Next, we're going to talk about how to breathe on a regulator with a mask on. If you were able to breathe with a regulator without a mask on, breathing with a regulator with the mask on is going to be a lot more easy. It's very important that you don't breathe out of your nose on this one, because if you do, all that hot air is going to enter your mask, and it's very likely that it's going to fog. You won't be able to breathe in your nose because your nose is secured inside of your skirt, but you can breathe out. So we're going to put our mask on just like we normally would. Again, it's not very tight. I can grab 2 fingers and easily pull it away. The mask strap is just tight enough to hold it onto my face. Then I'm going to put my regulator in my mouth. I'm going to put my face in the water so that my ears are out. I want you to look directly in front of you and breathe normally like you did on the last one. Slow and steady, and sure to exhale fully. It looks like this. You will find breathing with a mask on is significantly easier to control your airway than when you don't have a mask on. You may notice that we can discuss all these skills on the surface very easily. If I submerge underwater, I can't talk to you and you can't talk to me. The only way we can communicate is with hand signals. Some people have plastic slates that they can write on with pencil, but that can be tedious and most people don't carry them. Right, so a couple signals that we're going to talk about to help communicate underwater are as follows. The first one is the OK signal. The OK signal, if I'm giving it to you, is me asking you if you are okay. And if you are okay, you return the OK signal to me just like that. Right? If you're not okay, then I want you to say, hey, I'm not okay, and then gesture or point at something that you're not comfortable with. Like maybe my ear is squeezing, or I have a cramp, right? Or just my heart is pounding, right? And I'm gonna say, all right, settle down, relax, and then the breathe in and breathe out signal. You're gonna see me do that a lot when we're trying to master buoyancy control. Right? If I point at this and I do this, or if I just do this, this is me telling you to add a little bit of burst of air, just like this, into your BCD. It doesn't take a lot. Right? If I'm doing this, I'm telling you to vent your BCD. This is a very common signal to see from new divers that think diving is so awesome, because this is a common, hey, this is good. In the diving world, this means we need to go up now because the dive is done, because I'm either low on air or I'm having an issue. So if you do this, I'm going to say, okay, let's go up, and then the whole group is going to stand up. We're going to talk about what your issue is. A few more signals we're going to talk about are the low on air signal and the add air signal. I give the low on air signal when I've reached my minimum gas reserve and it's time to either end my dive, or I would like to share air so that I can get to the surface with air. Right? You should really never have to give this signal, because you should be monitoring your air very frequently to ensure that you do not run yourself low on air. Remember, we are get on the surface, on the boat, or on the shore with at least 500 pounds per square inch in our tank. Right? Another signal I might do is this. I'm asking you what your air pressure is. Right? If you are greater than 1,500 pounds, just give me the OK signal. If you are less than 1,500 pounds, I want you to give me your pressure in groups of 500. So 5, 10, 15. If you're at 1,200 pounds, go 1, 2, 2. If you're at 800 pounds, you go 1 and then 3, just like that. Okay, so each fist opening is 500 pounds. If you run out of air, you give the I'm out of air signal. This is a universal signal that everybody knows, hey, I'm out of air, this is now an emergency, and I need to either get to the surface quickly or I need to share air, which is the preferred method. But again, you won't have to give these signals ever unless you continuously monitor your pressure. Next, we're finally going to submerge ourselves in about 4 feet of water. There are 3 things we're going to try to accomplish in this exercise. The first is ear equalization. We're going to try to equalize your ears in 4 feet of water. Every foot or so, I need you to pinch your nose and try to equalize your ears by gently blowing out to equalize the pressure difference across your eardrum. When we get to the bottom, I'm going to ask you, how is your ear? If your ear is okay, give me the okay signal. If the ear is not okay, then say this ear is not okay, and I need you to reduce the depth of your head and try to clear your ears again. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to try to set our baseline weight. What I mean by baseline weight is the least amount of weight we're going to need to get you to comfortably stay down on the bottom in fresh water with no exposure protection. Again, this is your baseline weight. From here, you're only ever going to add weight. If I transition from fresh water to salt water, I'm going to add about 4 to 6 pounds. If I put on about 3 millimeters of neoprene, I'm going to add about 4 or 6 pounds, depending on how big I am. So the way that we do this is I'm going to ensure that my BCD is completely empty of air. Then I'm put my mask on and my regulator in, and I'm going to exhale fully, and I'm going to attempt to lie down on the bottom. Don't forget to equalize while you're doing this, but I'm going to try to lie down on the bottom with no air on me at all, not in my lungs and not in my buoyancy compensation device. Then I should be able to breathe in, and when I do breathe in, I'll become slightly positive. You want to be neutral when you have almost a half a breath of air in your lungs. If you're having a difficulty getting down because your body is just not negative and you're kind of doing this to stay down, me or one of my dive masters will come up and put some weight in your pockets. We'll start off with 2 pounds. I want you to recognize that weight in the pockets is not the way to normally wear weight. We're only doing it for this exercise. If I have my weight in my pockets, there's no way to release them in an emergency in a quick manner. The most important feature of a weight system on a buoyancy compensation device is its means of quick release mechanisms, right? So we're going to wear weight belts with our weight when we find out how much weight we need, right? Then I'm gonna signal you some signals, and you're gonna see if you can communicate with me underwater and check your pressure gauges. Once we figure that all out, we're gonna try to establish a nice synchronous breathing pattern so that we see ourselves slightly rise up together and exhale together. Remember the signals for inhaling and exhaling. You should notice that when you inhale, you become a little positively buoyant, and then when you exhale, you become negatively buoyant. And that's what we're trying to accomplish on this dive. Vent the BCD, mask on.